Afternoon, everyone. Daniel with Elite Builders, eXp Realty here, and we're going to get into some good data today. Interest rates, why sellers are fewer and fewer, and some things of that nature. We'll get into some statistics regarding that and why there are fewer sellers, and also median home prices. Big numbers for us. So let's get right into it, okay, Nicole?
Let's do it.
Let's talk. So interest rates. We are sitting here, and it is the beginning of March, week ending March 2nd. The 30-year fixed rate is up to 6.65%. So what does that mean? Daniel, what does that mean? It's 6.65%. What does that mean? Well, I want to say it was a month prior. No, check that. 2 months prior, we saw a dip in the mortgage rate. It came down, and I think we were in the mid fives. Like you could get some 30-year fixed, 700 plus FICO, 20% down, solid assets. You were getting in the mid fives. So rates spiked again. And now our wonderful Fed chairman the central bank is going to raise rates again. So we know that number is going to rise as well. So 6.65. That's 4 straight weeks, 4 of an increased rate. So that's why I said we have to go back 2 months, because the previous month we had 4 straight weeks of an increased rate. So prior to that, rates were a little bit lower. So now that's obviously going to weigh on home buyers that were thinking of entering the market, it'll affect sellers too, because all it's doing is buyers are sitting on the sidelines because they see these rates rising, and they're saying to themselves, I'm not going to buy when rates are that high. To be honest, it's actually an average interest rate. It's not. They're high compared to what we are conditioned to think a normal rate is, which is 2 7/8, 3.5. That's not your normal rate. It's not. It never was. That is an opinion, but if you look at the average historical interest rates for the last 80 years, 70 years, high 5s to low 7s is your average rate. And that's where you're at now. So, but again, when you get 2020, 2021, 2 7/8, 3%, yeah, you're going to think these are high. So I get it. And again, it's weighing on these buyers that are sitting on the sidelines. And then what it also does is it affects sellers, because sellers are not able to now list property at these, really, really high numbers and expect 10, 15 offers. Those days are gone. So, I have been of the opinion that, and I've said this on the last episode, I've said it on the episode prior, that if you can afford the payment at, let's say, a 6.65% interest rate, and you're getting the property 10% less, 15% less, in some cases 20% less than it was in 2020 or 2021, if it were me, I'm buying the property. Because then what happens is you refinance that rate down to, let's say, 4, or maybe you even get an arm in the 3s. And now you're talking. You've got positive equity and a low interest rate, low payment. It's a win-win. Where else, in what other facet of the United States are prices lower and we don't take advantage of them? You wait for gas to go lower. You wait for a loaf of bread to go lower. You wait for jeans to get lower. You wait for a pair of shoes to go on sale. Right, Nicole? Don't you wait for shoes to go on sale? I know. Talk to me. You got your eyeballs on a pair of heels or a pair of shoes or a pair of boots, and you see they're $200, and you're like, nope, too much. Those boots go on sale for $140. Do you buy them?
Absolutely.
Why is it when real estate goes on sale 10% less, 15% less, people they sit on the sideline? No, I'm not going to buy it. Why is that? That doesn't make sense to me. But this, again, is just me. I get that that's not everybody. So, because that's why I always preface it with, if you can comfortably afford the payment, take the interest rate out of it. That is not a permanent thing. You know they're going to come down. They always do. They will always come down. How long it'll take, I don't know. So again, that's just an opinion. I understand that everybody is not me, but I will also say that when I see things on sale, I tend to buy them if I have the wherewithal to buy it. So we will talk about that. So again, 4 weeks of an increased rate. You're buying positive. If you are a buyer and you decide that, you know what, I'm going to do it. You're buying equity. It's basically what you're doing. You're buying your future. So when you do decide to sell it, you're going to sell it at a profit, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, even 30. You've now bought it again. You're buying in the black. You're not buying it in the red. So something to think about. So let's also talk about why home sellers are fewer and fewer. Why sellers are selling fewer homes. This is an interesting stat that came out, and I want to share it with you. Every week, Nicole, for the last 9 months, every week, fewer owners have listed their property for sale than a year ago. So that is every week for 9 months, the last 9. There have been fewer owners listing their property. Now, I ran into a situation this morning where I was talking to a seller who had a building, and the debt on that building, it's commercial, was like 2.99%. His bank came to him and said, we're closing this loan out, this program out. We're going to offer it to you at 2.99 if you want. It was for like $1.3 million, $1.4 million. And he took it. And then I didn't know that when I initially talked to him, but he brought it up I was asking questions, and then he brought that up to me because I was wondering, it's my job to help. It's not my job to talk somebody into doing anything that they don't want to do. So in figuring out his situation, I started, asking questions, pointed questions, and then that came out. And from our initial conversation a couple days before to now, he's got debt service at 2.99 for like $1.5 million. And the equity in the building is like $1.3 million. So he had like $1.3 million in equity. I said, why would I sell it? I did some thinking after our initial conversation, and he's like, and I appreciate you asking. He said, I appreciate you asking the questions that you did because you got me thinking. The building's making me money. Why would I sell it? And I didn't have an answer. I said, John, it makes sense. Keep it. I said, if you had a situation where you just, are you looking to retire and you want to like simplify your life? He's like, oh, I'm not there yet. I might be in a year or two, but he's like, I'm not there yet. And what am I going to do? I'm going to, I'd have to roll this money into something else because he 1031'd a previous sale into this building. So he sold one and then did a 1031 exchange. Nicole's looking at me like I got 3 heads. 1031 exchange. He sold a property and then within a certain amount of time found this one and bought this one, and he didn't have to pay tax on the previous sale. So now he hasn't paid tax on any of it. He will if he sells this one and then doesn't find something else. So you're basically kicking the can down the road. So that's what a 1031 is.
Is it like accumulated taxes on both properties or just the one that you sell at final?
That's a great question. I don't think it's accumulated. I think it's just on the one. Yeah, it's just on the one. But that's a good question. And actually, you know what? I'm going to find out the answer to that because I never had anybody ask me that. Is that accumulated taxes? I should know that. No one's ever asked me that. Good question. Love good questions.
Thank you.
Because I love saying I don't. You know what? I like saying I don't know because I don't know everything. And I know people. The commonality is to not say I don't know, to maybe give an answer that you really don't know, to show that you know the answer. And it's okay. Like, I don't know. I don't know everything. So I like not knowing. I like being the dumbest guy in the room because then it's going to like raise your level. You know what I mean? Love that. I'm the dumbest guy in this room.
No. Maybe in some ways, not others.
Yes, I am. Stop. Don't sell yourself short. I'm an idiot. All right. Here's some more stats for y'all. In the last week in February 2023, new listings were 16% lower than in 2022. So if you average that up, that's almost 20%. So let's say almost 20% there's almost 20% less new listings this year than this February than last February. That's a high number. It's a fifth, almost a fifth. It's a huge number. This is why sellers, less of them are coming, because it goes back to what I was just saying about this story. So this guy's like, well, why would I trade 2.99 in debt? I have debt service of 2.99%. And he owned the building. He didn't have a mortgage on the building. So he took debt service of $1.5 million, took $1.5 million out of the building. But it's free money. It's at 2.9%. So you do the math on what the payment is, but the building's cash flowing him like crazy. And now he's got $1.5 million in cash to do what he wants with it, whatever he did with it. So that parlays into here. If you have a seller that purchased, say, in 2020, and now it's 2023, and they were thinking of selling, or in 2022, and they had their property on the market and it didn't sell, now they're off the market. These are the people that I'm calling. And they said, I don't have anywhere to go. Well, if you don't mind me asking, it looks like a beautiful home. Was there a particular reason you were looking to sell it? We just thought we'd move. But the problem is we just couldn't find something. We'd sell this. We couldn't find anything that was in our price range. The prices were out of control, which makes complete sense. I'm selling at 3%. Now I'm going to have to buy at 7%. It's not, the payments, the debt service isn't making sense. The debt's too high. I can understand that, and that makes sense if they don't need to sell. These are people that didn't need to sell. They wanted to sell. There's a big difference. So I'm running into that a lot. I'm sure other agents that are prospectors are too. But there are more homes on the market now than a year ago. So this is why we're in such a weird market. It's so odd. And I'm going to get into the term that I've heard, and I agree with it. And that's what I think too. 67%. I went over the stat last episode. There's 67% more properties on the market than a year ago. And of those 67 homes, they're on the market for much longer. What did we go over last week? 19 days longer. Days on market's going up. And that number's only going to climb. That 19 days is only going to go up as the Fed keeps popping the interest rate higher. And these are all, just so you guys know, this is all Realtor.com stats. So this isn't like my opinion. I'm not throwing out, arbitrary numbers. Realtor.com has these stats. This is what I get my data from. So now, look, you pair that with the pace of sales. So the pace of sales has slowed for 30 straight weeks. 30 weeks. That's I don't know. What's a week? What's there, 52 weeks in a year? So 30 is like 2/3 of that. And, it means it basically wraps a bow on the fact that buyers have seen, and we talked about this in the last episode, buyers have seen all the property that's on the market. When you see stats like that days on market's rising, interest rates are rising, inventory's rising, 67% more. It means the buyers have looked on the MLS and they've looked at all these properties that are out there and are like, nope, don't want those. And then what happens is they become stale because the price is too high. So what are you going to do then? Now you're going to do what we call chasing the market down. All right, now we're going to take a price reduction. Maybe the buyers will see value here. All right, we're going to take another price reduction. Maybe buyers are going to see value here. You're going to chase it down, and the longer it sits on the market, the worse it gets because the market's declining as the Fed is continuing to raise rates. All it's doing is pulling the market down. So now you're chasing it down, which is why pricing up front is so pivotal. It's so important. It's such a skill. It's such a skill because you have to have the courage to share with the seller that the number that they have in their mind, if the market's not bearing that, you have to share with them. You have to tell them that and share it with them. The market's showing 520 and they want to list it for 590, 580. Like the numbers don't show it. And you have to have the courage and the skill to share that with them. I appreciate that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. We can definitely do that. List your property up at 580 and lump it up with these other properties here that are still on the market and haven't sold. Let me ask you a question. Is it an option for you not to sell this property and still make the move? No, we really need to sell. We don't want to be out-of-state landlords. We don't want to rent it. Okay, then that just brings us to that second strategy of pricing the property more in line with what is trading, even a little bit below. And what that's going to do is two things: create value in the eyes of those buyers and also get you to, Massachusetts in the time frame that you want. So seeing these two strategies now, knowing what we now know, which one do you think is going to serve you and your family best? That is a skill to present that way. And you are not telling them a number. You are sharing with them market statistics and letting them self-discover the number that they feel comfortable with. Now, sometimes they'll start out high, and you have to, if you're saying whatever strategy you choose, I'm going to support you 100%. Well, you have to stand behind that if they say, well, I want to start out here. Now, you can future pace them and say, no problem. We can definitely do that. Let me ask you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we're just not seeing the traction and showings and offers that we had expected, are you open to bringing the property more in line with what is trading in order to get you to Massachusetts in the time you want? Now, they'll usually say yes, but that is a future pace and a skill to present that way. So that is why pricing is so pivotal here in this market. And again, here at Elite Builders, we can show you how to do that and how to get these skills to present price and pre-qualify sellers so you can get them to their next destination, serve them in the highest level possible, and make them raving fans of yours. So whenever they know somebody who's looking to enter the market, whether it's to buy or sell, you are the first person they think of because of your skills and how you serve them previously. Okay, so now of that 67% more homes on the market, here is the actual number. So the 67% more homes on the market now than a year ago equates, the actual number is 234,000 homes. 234,000 more homes on the market now than last year. Big, big number. It's a big number. So again, we will piggyback and just say, look, when you see that 234,000 more homes on the market now than a year ago, it tells you that buyers, again, they've seen them, they've glanced over them, and they're like, no, we're not interested. And now, again, that seller's got to chase that market down, take these reductions till a buyer says, all right, you know what? That's at a number that I go take a look at. All right, I might make an offer on that. And they're probably still going to make an offer below where your list price is because you started out. But the perceived value is a very important thing. Let's talk about perceived value, Nicole. So perceived value is I'm putting a value in my head on something. And a buyer does that too on a home. Do you think the perceived value of a home stays the same, or do you think it goes down over time?
Down.
100%. The longer you see that property on the market, you think that perceived value is going down with that price? Of course it is.
I know this even off of rentals. If a rental's on the market for too long, I keep seeing it. I'm like, something's got to be wrong with it.
Yeah. That's that's perfect. That's the first question that any buyer or renter is going to ask when they see a property on the market for a while. And they're going to say to their agent, what's wrong with it? It's a common question. I get it all the time. Dan, what's wrong with it? And I can say there's nothing wrong with it. Or I can say the price is wrong with it. That's what's wrong with it, is the price. And again, presenting it up front, you won't have these problems if you present price properly up front when you're initially speaking to the seller or the owner to rent their property. So, yeah. And then the piggyback on that, Nicole, is if you say, and they say, well, nothing's wrong with it. And well, it's the price. The second question I get all the time is, well, maybe the seller will take a deal. Maybe they're desperate. They got to get it rented. They got to get it sold. But seller motivation comes into place. When Denise was here, we were talking about that too. When she makes offers on properties, because she's like, I don't know what the seller's motivation is, but I'm going to make my offer where I think it should be. And if they take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't. So, yeah. So stale listings. I mean, it's important. Sitting on the market weeks and weeks, sometimes months, a lot of times months. You're just sitting. And again, all these sellers' plans out the window. Movers, new home, all of that stuff. If my wife has to move because she's relocating on her job, I have to now stay back and manage this sale because it hasn't sold and we don't even have a contract on it. So all of these things are in play when you overprice a property or you see all this inventory and it's not selling. That's a problem. It's a real problem. So, look, and to piggyback on this too, the first 2 to 3 weeks of any listing are the most important. Like it's the freshest, it's the hottest, it hits the market. The agents see that it's 1 day on market, 2 days on market. Oh wow, let me take a look at it, and they're going to look at it. And what's the next thing they're going to do is compare it to recent sales and see if that number is legit or if it's way high. So look, I mean that's our job as buyer agents. And agents, period, is to get the best deal we can for a buyer. And as a listing agent, it's my job to get the best deal for a seller. However, if a buyer's not willing to pay what a seller lists their property at, then that's when, the questions will come. You have one of 3 options. We can keep the price the same when you go for a price reduction. We can either keep the price the same, hope, wish, and pray a buyer's going to come and make an offer, based on the fact that, they like the house. We've been on the market for 30 days and that hasn't happened. So the likelihood, the probability that that'll happen is, low. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? Probably not. And I like to deal in, I like to deal in reality, not in probables. Second potential outcome is we can just pull the property off the market and you can keep it. But I am aware that you mentioned to me you don't want to keep the property and rent it. So selling it is definitely the priority. Is that right? Yes. Okay. That brings us to our third option is we can just do what most sellers do is we can take an adjustment on the price, bring it more in line with what's trading, and then you take your adjustment. But again, now you're chasing it down. You can get that adjustment in the first 30 days. You should, you may be okay depending on how much you got to adjust it. But these are things that you have to think about as a seller. Those first 2 to 3 weeks are pivotal. They are pivotal for your listing and getting showings and getting offers. So, again, after that 2 to 3 weeks, property lingers, buyers start asking questions. What's wrong with it? We like it, but we're not going to pay list price. Let's see if we can get it for a deal. And now, you enter into a negotiation with buyer and seller. And but likelihood you have one offer. You're only going to have one offer. Very rare that you have more than one on a property that's been sitting for a while. So. Now let's get into some more stats, all right? Interesting statistic here about median asking price. This was interesting. January's median asking price in 2023 was $406,000. It's across the country. February's was $415,000. So it went up $9,000. How that stat goes up is beyond me. When you have rising inventory, what that tells me is sellers are still listing their properties very high, and those properties, based on statistics, are still sitting. So the sellers still have that 2020, 2021 idea in mind of the number that they want, and the numbers are not showing it. And look, that's January, February. That's not even the spring market. Those numbers are going to rise as the spring market comes in and all these properties start to hit the market. Like that, those median sale prices are going to increase. Look, higher mortgage rates, higher home prices, more stale listings. Like this is, it's what we've done is between what the Fed has done and the expectations of sellers as far as listing these properties high, it's basically brought the market to a standstill. Buyers aren't buying. The sellers that are out there, their properties aren't selling. So now we're at a standstill. So there's a term for that. And, sellers aren't willing to give up those 3% mortgages, 2% mortgages to sell, and then, to buy at double that. So when you, we can say it's not a buyer's market right now, interest rate wise, right? We can say it's not a seller's market right now because of properties sitting on the market longer than normal and 67% more inventory. So if it's not a buyer's market and it's not a seller's market, I saw this term the other day and it made complete sense. It's a nobody's market. It's nobody's, which is why we're at a standstill. The Fed's doing what they're doing. I get so frustrated with what they did during the pandemic, and then to act like they're doing us a favor by giving us these rinky-dink $300, $600, $1,200. It just was. I don't even want to get into it because it gets into different things, and we're going to stick to real estate here. So I'll say this. All this data suggests, okay, everything I'm going over, high rates, high inventory, all of it suggests that we as agents and brokers, you have to be asking the right questions to determine the sellers who have life events and need to move and have the wherewithal to do it in a good amount of time. Okay? We serve them to the best possible way we can. These market conditions aren't going to, they're ancillary to these sellers. They have to move. They're relocating. They have, a death in the family. They're getting divorced. Like these things, it doesn't matter what macroeconomic conditions there are. They have to sell. And those are the people that we are going to serve and serve at the highest level. And when we find them and when you get them, you ask them pointed, important, and direct questions as far as what their motivation is to get the end goal that they want. And we do that. And what that takes is skills. It takes skills to ask those questions and to know what questions to ask. So you can serve these people at the highest level. And again, they may not get what they could have gotten a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They probably aren't. But they're going to get the property sold, and they're going to do it in a very quick, timely, and for the absolute most amount a buyer's willing to pay. You do that, and you will be they will be your raving fan. And we'll tell everybody and anybody when they have someone who wants to enter the market, call Dan. Dan helped me, and this is what he did, and he's going to be the one to get you where you need to go. So, again, and you understand how to ask these questions, what questions to ask, how to ask them, and how to ask them with confidence. You get that by practicing, and you practice by role-playing. That's how you get these skills. You get in real-life situations where we go over these questions, and again, the elite builders, this is what we are. We build leaders, we build skilled agents here. So you can serve the public to the highest level possible because these people still need help. Doesn't matter what's going on around you. If you need help, you need help. You need to sell your property. You need to sell your property. You want to buy a property because maybe you're doing a 1031 exchange and you got to find a like building, or you're just going to upsize your family and you're like, look, we can afford the payment, so we're looking to buy a home. You serve these people. They need help, and that's what we do. So, to summarize, the market. Look, everybody's frustrated. I feel like the world, everybody. This isn't just real estate, Nicole. I feel like the world themselves is just everybody's just frustrated. Everybody's tired of hearing all this negative news. Like it's so. I feel like we're just so polarized as people. Somebody can't be one or like you can't have qualities of one and qualities of the other. You have to either be one or the other, whether it's like, I don't know. I just feel like we're so polarized right now. And I feel like people are very, very frustrated. So again, it's a nobody's market. We're gonna call it a nobody's market right now, and when it's not a buyer's market and it ain't a seller's market. So I will summarize the real estate market and all of this data that I've just gone over with you. We're gonna summarize it as that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a nobody's market, and as the Fed continues to make changes with rates and policies and things of that nature, I will continue to bring out stats and more episodes for you regarding those data so we can all keep up to date on what they're doing. So I don't have a book review for you guys today, but what I am going to share with you, it's not really a Danism, but I came across this in my travels, and I wanted to share it with you. I heard this, and it rang true for me because I'm not going to say that I have. I mean, it's related to like male depression, and I don't have male depression, and I'm not depressed. But it also brought up like issues when people have issues with attachment. That's something that it's come to my attention that I sometimes struggle with that. And it's now in my conscious front, and I'm working through that because it is real. I read that, I saw this, and it made sense. And I'm just going to share it with you, and I'd be curious your opinions on it. I heard it, and I wrote it. This is my journal. So I journaled it, and I'm going to share it with you because I understand what they're talking about, what he's talking about. It made complete sense to me. Something rang true when he said it, and I heard it, and I stopped the car and wrote this down because I keep this with me, this journal with me. When I see something or hear something or, read something and it rings true, I want to write it down so I don't forget it. So I keep this with me at all times. He said, male depression gets treated like female depression in that men are made to feel loved and accepted when all they really want is to feel capable and powerful. And I felt like that is so true. Like nothing could be truer. When I'm just me personally, like when I'm down, I don't want to I don't want to feel. I don't want to say it's the last thing, but I don't want to feel loved and accepted. I want to feel powerful and capable of whatever it is. So he goes on and says, give him, and this is when he said this is when I pulled the car over. He said, give a man a purpose and the ability to achieve it, and we will crawl over broken glass with a smile. And I said, God damn it, I got to pull over. That is like, it encompasses everything. Like that if I'm in a bad place, that's going to get me out. He's right. He's 100% right. You give me a purpose and the ability to achieve it, like a passion and the ability to actually achieve it. If you know that when you do this, this, and this, you're going to get it. I'll go through hellfire and brimstone to do it. And I'd imagine any man probably would, instead of feeling loved and accepted and like you're great and kumbaya and all that. No, man, like I don't want that. And I'd be curious if other men feel the same way. And he goes on and says, just feeling capable and powerful and competent and respected and admired is something that will get a man like just so far. And it will for me. Absolutely. You put those 5 things, I could even list more. You put those 5 in me, again, I'll walk on, he's right, I'll walk on broken glass with a smile. He goes on. He'll like you give a man those things, we'll deal with suffering because he says we're built to deal with it. We are. I'm built to deal with. That's all I've been doing for pretty much the majority of my life is like suffering, whatever it is. And I'm not like I'm not talking about being whipped and like you're you're enslaved and an indentured servant. But I'm talking about like suffering in whatever it is, relationally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financial. For me, a lot of it was financial. It was just suffering. Like I couldn't fucking get out of my own way. I couldn't. I don't want to suffer either. That's not what I don't want to communicate it in that way. But what I'm saying is when you're in the, when you're, in a bad place, to get out of that, because when you're in a bad place, you're suffering. So let's just say like, and the Buddha says, doesn't Buddha say life is suffering?
Life is suffering.
That's like the Buddha. So it's true in that when you're going through it, when I'm going through it, when I went through what I went through, and we've talked about it, and I can get into it even with more depth now. Like when I had to move back with my parents, that was I was depressed in that state. But when I was broke and when I owed like $56,000 in debt. When I was broke at that point, and I'm living in their basement, and I didn't have a job, there was a time when, like, you think about, is this all there is? And I'm not saying you're thinking about suicide, but I'm saying you think about, is this all life is? I don't have it I couldn't do it only for the fact that, like, I have parents that love me and siblings, and that's, that would probably be like the extent of it. Like I couldn't do it to them. It wasn't me. Like I didn't, like at that point, like, I didn't give a shit about me. It was the others that I had. So that switch in my head never changed to like, fuck it, I'm just doing it. And, that never, it never entered my mind. I'm not saying, like, how do I say this? I'm not condoning any of that. And I'm not saying I wasn't even close to it. The thought came into my head like, man, is this all life is? Like, do I really want to be here? Those thoughts were there. But going deeper than that, no, it was never there. Because, again, I was living in a basement, so I had somewhere to stay. I wasn't homeless. But those thoughts creep into your head. So to read this and hear this and say, give a man a purpose and the ability to achieve it, and I will crawl over broken glass with a fucking smile. You damn right I will. Absolutely. So it's like, yes, I just heard that and was like, when you think about suffering and people that have, there are people that have suffered eminently more than I have, way more than I have, way more. There are people that have suffered less than I have. It's like going to the gym. There's people that are bigger than you, people that are smaller than you. It's all in relation to in your brain. But again, this rang true. He goes on and says, like, we're designed as men to do that. Like, we're designed to suffer, like to deal with that suffering, but it needs to be in service of something. And that was poignant when he said that. It needs to be in service of something. And I'm like, like there's got to be, you can't just sit and suffer and take it and take it. Like there's got to be, you're doing it, you're suffering for what? You know what I mean? Like what's the purpose? You're suffering so the end goal is what? So, but it was interesting that all of the therapy, I guess I've heard, when you hear people talking about, attachment and depression and things like that, he's right. It's treated, male depression is treated like female depression in that everyone's made to feel loved and accepted. And for me, that's not what I needed or wanted. No, you give me power and strength and acceptance and capability and competency, yeah, that's what I need. That's what I want. That's what I want. The most emasculated I've ever felt was when I was laid off from jobs. That was the lowest that I got because many men, I'm not going to say every man, but the majority of them, our purpose in life, our job in life, and I'm going to say job, but our purpose is tied to our job. Because most men are fathers. So if you're not able to provide for your family and now you get laid off, like that is, you want to talk about depression and like What am I going to do? I have to provide for a family. So I get asked a ton, like, why are you not married? That's a big reason why. It took me years to figure out my life. Years. Way longer than normal people. I don't say normal, but way more than the average person who figures whatever they want to do probably in their 20s. I didn't figure it out till my early 40s. So, like, you've got it all. I know you got it all figured out now, like where you're going to go, what you're going to do, right?
Sure.
Like, what's on tap for Nicole?
I have the next
Stardom.
I have the next 3 hours of my life planned out. That's about it.
You're like, you know what? I know what I'm eating for dinner. That's about it.
Yeah, actually, no, not even that.
Seriously, you're not even that
I
far?
have the next like hour of my life planned out.
I love it. Well, that's like that. Listen, that was me in my 20s. I was screwing around, like just doing dumb shit. Nothing that was, you know what I was doing? My mother and I were talking about this. I was taking up space. Like I was just consuming. Like I was your typical, like government. Like I was the perfect person the government wanted. You consume, you conform to what they want, which is what I kept doing with jobs and whatever, unemployment and, whatever they said. It was like, oh God, like I'm just going to rely on them because it's how you get control. How you control somebody is you make them relying on you. And I was. So I was like perfect for that. And then you start to get educated. And you start to understand you have skills, you have something to offer this world. Thankfully, I found out what it was, or somewhat of what it was. But again, I just found out later in life. So this ties into, like, most men, your worth in life is tied to your job because your job is tied to providing for your family. So I never had that. Which is why, again, I think that's a big reason why it took me so long to get to where I'm at. Because I didn't have those pressures. So I could fuck up all the time and just keep figuring, okay, I'll just get another job. All right, I'll just get another job. These menial paying jobs. You weren't doing, again, I wasn't doing anything. I was working 9 to 5, 9 to 6, Monday through Friday. Weekends come, hit the bar. Sunday comes, you get the Sunday scaries, don't want to go to work on Monday. Like, was my life for decades. 2 decades. Like what? There's no. I wasn't reading. I wasn't writing. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't exercising, but I wasn't diligent with getting up early. All the things that successful people do in their lives, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially, everything that they were doing, maybe with the exception of physically, I wasn't doing. None of them. So in reading this, it gave me a true understanding of males and what's being pushed to us, or I don't want to say down our throats, but to what's being pushed, the narrative being pushed to us that I don't think is accurate. And I'd really be curious to hear other men's opinions on what I just read as far as how they're treated when they're down, even by their spouses. Does your spouse empower you, make you feel capable and admire and respect it, or does she just, everything's going to be okay and she's going to hug you and tell you things are going to be fine and she loves you? You already know that. I know that you love me. I don't need you to tell me you love me. I need you to tell me I'm going to fucking rule the world. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I need from you. I need you to tell me that I'm going to be a fucking rock star and screw this place that just let me go. You're going to find a better job with better money that's going to have better benefits, or, if the business shut down, you're going to open up a new business and it's going to be better than the previous one. And you're going to crush it. Like, that's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear what, the other stuff. That's what my mother's for. When I want to hear that things are going to be okay and someone loves me, I'll call my mom.
Unless you have mother issues, and then...
That's true. Well, what do you mean by mother issues?
You never heard your mom say that.
Oh, like your mother never told you, like, that she loves you?
Yes, and you don't get it from anybody.
I never thought about that. That's an interesting point. No, I listen, I'm blessed to have, 2 parents that are still alive, that I serve to this day, and I will serve to the day that I am not here anymore. Hopefully they don't outlive me. Like, that would break the natural cycle of how, life is supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I would never want that. And again, that goes back to when I was living with them. Like, I thought about that. Like, that breaks the natural cycle. I can't imagine a parent burying a kid. It's fucking crazy. I have a friend who did. She had a newborn, and he passed. And she talks about it openly now. She's okay with it, but she can get emotional with it. Like, that just breaks the natural cycle of how life goes. So this is a long-winded way of talking about something that I heard that was really, really powerful. And I wanted to get your opinion on it, Nicole, because you're a woman. And again, like we were talking about this before, like, I can't relate to you. There's no way I can relate to you, ever. No way I can relate to a young female, different ethnicity, born in a different time, exposed to a completely different upbringing than me, and you're female. Like, I can't relate to that. You have no idea. I can't ever say, like, yeah, I know what you feel. How? Just like you can't relate to me. A middle-aged, well, getting up there in age, but middle-aged, male, different ethnicity, average build, average height, and but a fucking rock star with life. Like, you can't relate to me. You know what I'm saying?
We're just both rock stars.
Well, that's very true.
In completely different universes.
It's a good point. I mean, it's true. But the reason I'm saying this is I can learn from you. You can give me a perspective that I've never thought about. And I can sit and let that marinate in my head for a while, and say, I never thought about that.
And so can your listeners in the comments. Share
That's
their
true.
perspective on this.
Well, that's true. I'd encourage it. I mean, fuck, we sat and talked about this for what, a half hour? I mean, we talked about this. This was like extensive. I literally have a page. I didn't really want to go. I didn't think it was going to get into this whole thing, but I mean, it's important. I think it's important that there are just differences between males and females and how we're portrayed, and I don't know. It just hit me. I was listening to that, and then when he said that, give a man a purpose and the ability to achieve it, and we will crawl over broken glass with a smile. I said, I got to pull over and write this down. So with that, I will sign off and say thank you all for listening. Appreciate you. Nicole, you are a rock star. There's no doubt about it. And next episode will be, again, we're going to go into some more data. Love going over data. And I think data is really important in this time period that we're in right now because of the uncertainty that's going on in the market. So all of this information is going to do is arm you as the consumer, whether you are a buyer, a seller, or a renter. All it's going to do is arm you with information to make the best decision you can for yourself and your families. So with that, I will say this is Dan the Man, Elite Builders, eXp Realty, signing off. Be well, y'all, and love your life.